Hey there, welcome back to the Creator Podcast. In today's episode, we were able to sit down with Josh Sattin. We talked about his YouTube journey from farming to camera tech. We talked a lot about different types of camera tech and what we're going to see here in the future. It was a wonderful conversation. I hope you enjoy it. There's some valuable insight here. And without further ado, here is Josh. Josh, thank you so much for being here on the podcast today.
Thanks for having me, Josh. I'm so excited to have met you at NAB, and thanks for the invite. It means a lot.
Yeah, it was cool. I was able to meet you at NAB really fast. For people listening, we met really quick, went up to you. I was like, hey, I'd love to have you on the podcast to chat with you just because I love your stuff. So I appreciate you taking time out of your day to be here, really.
Absolutely. It's going to be fun.
For people listening right now who might not know a little bit about you, could you tell us a little bit about yourself? Who are you?
All right. So my name is Josh Sattin. I live in Raleigh, North Carolina. So most people that are probably watching this know about me through my YouTube channel, I'm guessing. If you know about my YouTube channel, I feel like it's a pretty small channel. But I've done a lot of things. I don't know how much in my background you want to get into, but we'll stick to probably the stuff related to cameras and filmmaking and content creation. So I started a YouTube channel in 2019. It was about small-scale sustainable farming, which is what I was doing at the time. I was running a small-scale farm. And that's what got me hooked in all of this camera videography stuff. And then that channel, we can talk about that a little bit too, which was very successful. And now I'm kind of splitting my time between my camera channel, which is reviewing cameras, lenses, gear, videography tips and tutorials and stuff, and then also doing some client work on the side. So that's kind of my world at the moment. I'm sure it'll change.
As it probably always does. So, this was something that was revealed to me later on. I started watching your YouTube channel. It was your camera YouTube channel.
Yeah.
And then come to find out you have your farming channel that you had originally. You were filming all that. You said you started, doing the camera work because of the farming. At what point were you like, man, I think I want to start another channel dedicated to camera reviews and camera equipment?
So, yeah, this was actually interesting. Most people don't know this, but I actually started the camera channel, which I'm now calling my main channel because I don't work on the farming channel anymore, but and that's just called Josh Sattin. The other one's called Josh Sattin Farming, if anyone wants to check those out.
Yep.
So I started this several years ago and actually made a bunch of videos and then stopped and took those videos down because it wasn't the right direction that I wanted to take that channel in. And so I restarted that channel, I think about maybe a year and a half ago. I don't remember the time period, maybe a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago. And
yeah,
I just got so nerdy about camera stuff through my farming channel because when I started that channel, I was using my cell phone, and then it was I got a camera, and then I was like, how do I make it look like this? I need this lens. It was just constantly changing. And I'm like, wait a minute, I love this stuff. I should make content about cameras because I'm so nerdy about it and I love it. And if anyone is interested in starting a YouTube channel, that is what you need to do is whatever you can't stop talking about and you want to nerd out on, that's what you should be making content about. So it's been in the works for a while, but that shift really started because I stopped farming last summer, which was summer of 2022. And so that's when I went full on into videography and the camera channel.
What was the reason you stopped farming completely, if you mind me asking?
No, it's cool. So I have this cycle in my life of every 5 years, and I don't know if it's a self-fulfilling prophecy at this point, but every one of these mini careers that I've done has been 5 years. I taught high school for 5 years. I brewed beer professionally for 5 or 6 years. And then the farming thing, I was coming up on year 5 or 6, and in my head I was like, am I done with it? And then I just was thinking I was more passionate about the videography stuff, and it just kind of made more sense for my family and everything. And so I put the farm to rest for the summer because I'm in North Carolina here. It's crazy hot, and I want to take a couple months off in the summer, not farm in the heat. And then the fall came around, and I just had no interest in planting. And I was like, I guess the answer has been made, or so the decision has been made.
That's super interesting. So it's just been a cycle of 5 years that you found that you've just gone through things.
Yeah, and as this 5-year period came up, I was thinking, wait, am I done with this because it's 5 years, or am I telling myself I'm done with this because it's been? I couldn't figure that one out. So, anyways,
that's interesting. Did you try a lot of stuff as a kid growing up?
I think I dabbled in a lot of different stuff. Yeah, a lot of hobbies.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I'm a nerd. I love learning about stuff. And at some point you're like, hey, I
Yeah.
want to learn about that thing. I want to learn about this thing. So
I think there's something like really awesome about following curiosity because it just takes you down different roads and paths. You know, for instance, you said you're a teacher, and then you started brewing beer, and then farming. Like, I mean, I haven't done any of those things, and like I think it's really interesting to see someone's like curiosity and how they like follow it. So, do you feel like as a kid you were a pretty curious kid?
yeah, I was a nerd for sure. I mean,
Yeah.
like same with my wife, same with my kids. We're all nerds. Like we just love learning about stuff.
That's cool. That's amazing. Did you ever think like that you would start a YouTube channel about cameras when you started farming?
No, I didn't even think I was going to start a YouTube channel about farming when I started
Yeah.
farming. So one thing to give a little bit of backstory and make this make a little bit more sense is that I had a business in between two of my brewing gigs where I had a homebrew store, so selling equipment and ingredients and stuff, and that was my first real entrepreneurial situation. And it was successful in that I made some money. When I sold it, I got what I put in. It was a great experience. My biggest takeaway from that was I sucked at marketing. Like I had no idea how
Mm,
to do it. I didn't know how to learn how to do it. I wasn't willing to. I was like, oh, I'll just open the door. Like if you build it, they will
yeah.
come. And that was sort of the approach. And so when I started the farm, I was like, I cannot take that approach. Like I have to be proactive. I need to learn how to market. So in 2018, early 2018, when the farm started, I got on Instagram and started figuring out Instagram and grew that account
It's cool.
decently well and decently quickly. Again, no experience with marketing. And so just observing. I also have a very analytical brain. So for me, it was a lot of like figuring out what worked, what didn't work. And then about a year in, people started asking me tons of questions. And like the teacher and me wanted to like talk, but then it was only like 59-second videos. Like
Yeah.
there wasn't the opportunity to like do long form.
Do longer
Yeah,
form.
so I started making these like really dense 59-second videos of like how to do something, like some sort of tutorial. And I was like, all right, I'll start YouTube. And then I started YouTube, and I literally started with my cell phone and just wanted to get it started. 2 months in, I had a viral video, and the channel blew up like insane. Like it was like I mean that video, yeah, it's got like 3 million views now, and
Oh my goodness.
yeah, it launched the channel. I had like 30,000 subscribers like almost overnight. It felt like so. It
Wow.
sort of launched me into that very quickly. It got monetized right away, and all of a sudden I was like, "Whoa, I can't ignore this anymore. I should put more time
Yeah.
into this." So from then on, I was really splitting my time between YouTube and farming.
You get that kind of like notification, hey, like your YouTube's monetized now, you have all these subscribers. What was going through your head when you're seeing all this and you're like, I got to act so quickly? Or, you know, what, like, are you kind of like scramming at this point? What's going through your head when you're figuring all this new information out?
I didn't really comprehend what was going on. I remember
Yeah.
like I was with my buddy and we are going somewhere, and I was looking at my phone, and it was just like, wait, how many subscribers? There was days where I got
Yeah.
2,000 subscribers in a day, and I was like, what is going on? This is crazy. So I don't think I could really comprehend it because I had no experience on YouTube. Now, like when something like that starts, you kind of know what's going on. I just had no clue, and so I think I got really lucky that if you anyone watching or anyone curious about viral videos, if your video is not like directly in your lane,
Yeah.
like it can be a problem for your channel because you can get a lot of subscribers that aren't really interested in the content that you're making. But for me, it was like dead on perfect, and so the channel just kind of took off, and I got to 100,000 subscribers in 13 and a half months.
Oh my
So,
goodness. That's incredible.
and I know I'm a complete outlier, and like
Yeah.
the experience was crazy, and now I'm at like 230 something thousand subscribers, and I haven't posted in a year. So,
Wow.
but it gave me a lot of perspective on YouTube, and the experience has been great. And now, like starting another channel, I feel so humbled to like be a small creator again, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, there's probably something fun about it because you're able to, you know, just start over and you can do things fresh and also completely differently than how you were doing your farming channel. You know, this is an interesting conversation because I think I've had a few conversations with other people about like videos going viral, and I think it's so important that for the creator, they need to be making the content, like you said at the beginning, that they want to make because you could have a video that goes viral and let's say it was something that you're not that interested in. Now all of a sudden your audience is expecting more of those viral videos and it can be really detrimental to your channel in a lot of ways because you don't know where to go from there. And so it was probably a nice feeling that you got seen from these people. Your video went viral, but it was already content that you were making, right?
Yeah, I've definitely seen that from other channels where if you look at their subscriber count and it looks really high, but then you look at like the number of views per video and you're like, why is it so low? It's like they probably had a viral video that was not related to the videos that they make. So I got lucky in that regard.
I think it just proves a point that it's so important to keep staying true to yourself and making the content that you want to make. Whether that's being seen or not, I think, because one day something for a creator could pop off and it could be beneficial to them, and they're able to sustain that by continually making the content that they want to make.
Yeah, and we could probably talk for hours about YouTube strategy. Yeah, I think it's challenging because the algorithm will force you into making certain kinds of content if you're just like purely making content to make content versus if you are trying to grow on YouTube, then the algorithm will force you into different corners and then you'll be making the same content over and over again.
Have you felt like YouTube, like the algorithm kind of pushing you in certain waves at certain times in your life?
Yeah.
And what did that look like?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even on the camera channel, like I will post something that's even slightly out of my lane and then YouTube is like, nope, we're not pushing this. And so
Interesting.
It's not the algorithm's fault. Like people get mad about the algorithm, but you have to realize like if Josh makes camera comparison videos and it knows what to push, who to push those to, who's going to watch them, then I make a video about something else and it doesn't know what to do with that video. It's just trying to get the most views, the most watch time, show the most ads. So the long-term strategy I found to keep me sane is to have like 3 buckets of content or 3 styles that you like to make, and then you will grow more slowly, but you'll be more sane because you'll get to make some of the stuff that you want to make.
That's interesting. I kind of want to dabble in that a little bit, but to rewind a little bit, because I do want to kind of pick your brain on how you go about making your channel.
Sure.
From like the moment of conception to a video to hitting publish, and we'll talk about that. But you have this farming channel. It's going off. You have viral videos. Now you have 230,000 subscribers. You've hit your 5-year point where you're like, I think I'm kind of done with this. Fall hits. You're like, I don't want to farm again. The public videos that I can see on your YouTube channel is a year ago. And we know that like YouTube isn't the best at giving the actual date, it just says like a year. But when you started really pushing your camera channel, your main channel, what was your goal and desire for that channel?
Yeah, so I had to make a pivot because the camera space is very much saturated. Like there's a lot of people making content about it. And so what you need to do in any niche, and I'm giving just general YouTube advice here, is you got to find a gap somewhere in the niche that you're in and you got to push through. I always think about like a wedge. You have to go in and then sort of push through and try to shoot through as best as possible. So you have to create a product, or in this case, the product or your videos or your channel, your branding.
Yeah.
That's different. And that's with any marketing, any sort of sales thing, right? Any product, you have to be different and you have to be really good at it. So for me, originally I wanted to have my 3 buckets be long form discussion videos, like kind of like what we're doing now. That was actually a big part of it, which I tabled. And then gear reviews and tutorials. So those would be my 3 sort of pillars that I was going to, buckets I was going to lean on. But what I realized was the long form videos were not getting any traction. We're not helping the channel grow. And so I really went hard on gear tutorials or gear reviews and stuff and comparisons, because as most of us know, that's what gets the most views in our space. And so a mixture of that and a mixture of tutorials now is kind of what I'm doing. And I really do focus as much as possible on evergreen content. Now, there's a lot of strategy with YouTube in that people often want to make the video that's going to get the most hits right away. You have the flashy titles and thumbnails. You know what I'm talking about. The brand new thing. If you look at my style of titles and thumbnails, it's like a camera. Like there's no arrows, there's no shocked face, there's none of that YouTube stuff. That's just me, because when you see a video, hopefully, or you see a thumbnail, you go, that's a Josh video. Like that's part of my branding, is that when you watch one of my videos, there's no BS. I get right to the point. I'm going to be a straight shooter. I'm trying to be as journalistic and independent as possible. And that's my whole branding that I'm trying to portray with all of that stuff. So,
well, it's super. Oh, go ahead.
No, it's there's a lot to all this stuff. And I think, like you said before, when I start a second channel, you really rethink a lot of your process, because with the farming channel, I was kind of just winging it as I went, if that makes sense.
In today's fast-paced world, content creation has become an essential tool for connecting with audiences and sharing ideas. Whether you're a filmmaker, a live streamer, or a social media influencer, the quality of your content can make all the difference in capturing and engaging with your audience. That's where Hollyland technology comes in. As a leading innovator with wireless video transmission, monitors, microphones, and intercom systems, Hollyland offers reliable solutions to capture high-quality content. Whether you're working on a film set, broadcasting live events, or creating content for social media, Hollyland has the tools you need to elevate your production value. Their cutting-edge technology allows you to focus on capturing the perfect content without worrying about technical issues. If you're looking for high-quality wireless solutions, check out Hollyland's product range. Visit their website at hollyland.com to learn more about their products and find the perfect solution for your needs. Make sure to use the code GEAR15 at checkout for an extra 15% off. And thank you to Hollyland for sponsoring this video. I actually wrote a note for this. I feel like your channel has done such a good job at being able to create consistency for your audience and what I would call a buyer. And what I mean by that is, let's say, part of your audience buys a camera that you've suggested. I love that you've actually not just done one video on that camera, but you've followed up with that camera. You've compared that camera to other cameras. When there's a firmware update, I feel like you're really good about explaining that firmware update, walking people through it. And I think it's actually created a consistency for your audience to continually come back to your channel, because you've become a resource for them to be able to say, I bought this camera. This guy didn't just make a video and now he's done with me, but he's actually we're kind of growing together. There's probably some level of hey, we're learning this as we go together, and we're, updating you through the process. And I think it's just been really beneficial for me to see on your end, when, Sony FX3 firmware update comes out, you launch an update video and you talk about it. You also continually compare these cameras. I think that's been huge. And it's something that I haven't seen other people consistently do at the rate that you're doing it.
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, I thought about that a while ago, and that my approach was, most people will do one review on the camera, especially the people that are in that space where you're getting the cameras when they come out. I'm not in that world.
Right.
And so when I get a camera, I usually have to buy it.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to hold on to it for a little while,
Yeah.
because I want to get my money's worth out of it and make a bunch of content about it. But I also realized that for me, I wanted to dive deeper into each little topic of the camera. So I didn't want to just make one big review. I wanted to let's do a video about the overheating. Let's do a video about the stabilization. Let's do a video about, how to grade with this, how to, expose with this, all those things, like you said, firmware updates. I think it's been fun for me, because I want to go deeper on each little thing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because I think it's really hard to cover every little niche and detail about a camera, especially in one video. And I think how has your audience responded to that when you're updating these videos with firmware update videos, comparison videos? What is the general response from people?
I think, like you said, a lot of the people that are invested in my content love that, because a great example of that was the Canon R7. So I did a lot of content on the R7, and I saw that as a great opportunity, because when the R7 came out, it was a camera that was for birders, bird photography.
Yeah.
That's the main target, I feel with that camera. Yeah. And I was like, wait, it shoots great video. And I was the only guy that I could find making content about shooting video on the R7. So I was the R7 video guy.
Yeah.
And that really helped the channel grow, and gave me a lot of perspective. And I just went one thing after the other with that camera. So it's hard, though, because after you do that a lot, it's these cameras it's hard to keep super excited about all of the cameras. Right. You know what I mean? So it's challenging to pick a camera and really stick with it for a long period of time. I did that with the A7 IV. Yep. I did a bunch of videos on the R6 Mark II. And even if you look at my YouTube channel, it's organized by camera. So you can go through and see, all right, I want to watch all the videos on the FX3, then you can go check those out.
Yeah, another thing, speaking about cameras, a lot of different YouTuber people, you can kind of pin them down to a certain camera brand. It's easy to be oh, they're either a Sony shooter or a Canon shooter. But if someone was to go to your YouTube channel right now, it is very unbiased towards either end of the spectrum. And I think that is very unique to your channel, because I feel like you're consistently shooting with either a Canon camera or a Sony camera or maybe a Fuji camera. I know you had recently said that you bought a Red camera. How has that been, and is there some intentionality behind that for you to be able to have like a bunch of different camera brands and go back and forth between each brand?
Yeah, there's multiple parts of this. First of all, I love cameras.
Yeah.
Like I love all of them. Like I wanna, if I could own every
Just
camera,
give 'em
I
to
would.
me.
Like they're just give them to me. So any camera manufacturers watching this, send me cameras. That's the first part of it. The second part is there are parts of each system that I like better than others, and so I really do firmly believe in the right tool for the right job.
Yep.
And so for right now, like in my studio, like I'm shooting on a Canon camera right now, but when I go do my real estate work, which I'm doing some like stuff for an architect, I shoot on my FX3 because it's the right camera
Yep.
for that job. And so for me, I kind of have to live in both worlds because there's some things I like better. I can't fully commit. I've gone back and forth so many times that I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to live in both worlds. As expensive and confusing for my brain that is. And that's what also got me motivated with my channel, in that I really want to take a very journalistic approach. I don't want to be biased. I don't want to be influenced by companies, like in terms of taking sponsorships. Like I've been sponsored by Squarespace. But I really don't want to take money from, a camera manufacturer or something like that, because I really want to try to be journalistic, independent as possible. And I think it's important when you are talking about a new camera that comes out, like the Sony ZV-E1, for example, that just came out. And I can talk about that, and I can really say, like, look, this is how it compares with the other Canon cameras that are out right now, or the other Sony cameras. I've shot on all these cameras. Yeah. And so I think, as you said, like that gives me a unique perspective, and that's definitely part of what I want to do on the channel, is to try to be unbiased and independent about it.
Yeah, and I think it's super beneficial for someone who, is trying to buy a camera, because people probably ask you all the time, like, what's the perfect camera for me, or what camera should I get? And, you kind of mentioned it, but like you're trying to choose the right camera for the right job. And I think that's the problem with trying to like pin down a specific camera for somebody when you don't know their workflow or you don't know what they're doing. Because I feel like you can't just, anytime somebody asks me a question of like, what camera should I get? I'm like, I need to know your whole life story in a sense to figure out what you're trying to shoot. And I maybe that's something we could talk about a little bit, of like choosing the right camera for the right job, and somebody who's trying to get into filmmaking or photography, and like how do they need to figure out what camera works for them?
I think for most people, stick to one brand.
Yep.
That's a good check. That's going to be a good check. Yeah. So I do, a lot of people will say like this camera or that camera. Let's say like, should I get the, I don't know, pick two cameras, the R6 Mark II or the A7 IV?
Yep.
Like what, right? I think the bigger question is about lensing and what you need to use the camera for. Because once you start buying lenses, you can lose a lot of money if you're buying new lenses to then sell them used and try to buy other new lenses.
Yep.
So I think that's the biggest thing, is which ecosystem that you want to be in. And to me, it's usually when I go to shoot something, the first thing I think about is the lens that I need to use and the focal length. And then that will determine like which camera or which camera system that I want to shoot on. But I think for most people, you can get away with anything for most situations, because the cameras out now, most of them are absolutely incredible. And there are limitations. There are like overheating, there's frame rates, there's sensor size, there's stuff that make your life a little bit easier one way or the other. But generally, like if you spend a few $1,000s on a camera system, like you're going to be pretty happy.
Yeah. I mean, the cameras now are just all so good, and you can't really go wrong with any brand. What was like the first camera that you got for your farming channel? I know you were filming on your phone.
It was a Canon. Yeah, I had a Google Pixel 3, or I don't even know. It was an old phone, and that was like what I had at the time, and it was old when I had it.
Yeah.
And I remember I bought like a Rode Video Micro and like a $20 tripod on Amazon. I got the channel started for like $100, and I was editing on my phone. I just was like, let's try this out. Like it's about the content, And as a former teacher, I could just talk to the camera. It wasn't really a big deal for me. But the first camera I bought was the Canon M50,
Okay.
and it's funny. I think that viral video might have been the first video I shot on that camera, and the audio level was so low. It was like embarrassingly low, and I don't think I knew how to adjust it in the camera or in post. So everyone's like, "Can you turn the volume up?" I'm like, "Sorry, it's
I
too
can't
late
figure it
now."
out. Yeah.
But yeah, it was the M50, and from there I just progressed through Canon for a while before picking up a Sony. But I tried a lot of different Canon cameras.
That's really cool. And it's cool to hear too that you started out just, making videos with your phone. Because I've had this conversation with other people too. Uh, I think I think we're in a good space too, where like a lot of people who maybe are starting out probably could just use their phone for a lot of different content. Um, what are your thoughts on using a phone for content today? And like people who are asking the question of like, what camera should I get? And you're like, maybe you should use a phone or something.
Yeah, I mean, not in the, if you're trying to make content for the camera niche, no,
Right.
but every other
That's
niche out
true.
there, yes, you can get away. I mean, it's funny because we're all saturated by this content because we're watching our friends' stuff, we're
Yeah.
watching these videos, and everyone's got ridiculously professional looking stuff
Yeah.
like lighting, audio. Like, I mean, I have the standard YouTube
Yeah.
podcaster mic here, like all that stuff. And then you go like if you're trying to research something else or you're trying to watch some other content, another niche, and you look at the quality, you're like, oh, this is like
Yeah.
YouTube is completely different outside of this world. So yes, absolutely. I would say if you have a phone that's come out in the last year or two, I would invest in a microphone and a light if you're going to do something inside
That's cool.
before getting a camera because the phones are so good. I mean, for most situations, they're going to work probably better. And if you get a camera, there's a learning curve there, and you have to figure out how to use it. And
You're
you're going to be distracted from making content, which is the most important thing is the content that you're producing.
Yeah, the story that you're telling with your, content that you're creating, that is probably one of the most important things. Everybody says like story is king, but it really is. It's the thing that will keep your viewers coming back for more and wanting to watch more and more and more. And so I think it's super important to be able to, just make sure that you're focusing on your story. And eventually I think it's cool when you can grow into a new camera system, like you jumped into the Canon cameras. At what point did you start testing out the waters between other camera systems?
I think for me, I was pretty solidly in Canon for the first like year and change.
Okay.
And I had the EOS R, and we did a podcast recently, and I put that in my top 5 all time favorite cameras
Really?
because the R, I have so many memories with that camera, and I shot so much content for my farming channel that it was just important for me as a creator. And then I remember when the R5 came out, it was like with all the debacle with the overheating and
Right.
all that stuff, it was like this is in 2020, and I was so excited for the R5. I wanted to shoot 10-bit uncropped 4K, and then that came out. I was like, oh my! And then right after that came out, Sony's like, here's the A7S III. It doesn't
Oh man.
overheat, and I was like. And I was like, oh, maybe I should. And that was sort of when I started dabbling in Sony. I bought an A7 III and started working into Sony a little bit more. And I've been back and forth ever since. So that was kind of the start of that. And I've tried, I feel like I've tried every camera at this point.
That's super funny to me. I had the Canon R, the EOS R, for a while, and then the Sony A7S III had come out, and I was like, I think this is the camera for me. That's the camera I ended up purchasing personally. I haven't gotten another camera since because it fits all the needs that I need for my workflow. But anytime, like, again, kind of going back to the right camera for the right job, it works for my workflow and it does what I need it to do. But for other people who need the R5, do you still have your R5? Did you get an R5?
Yeah, I've had an R5 a few times, but I don't have one right
That's
now.
funny. And then you got the Canon C70 at one point too, I think, right?
I'm shooting on a C70 right now. Yeah,
Oh, cool.
I don't want to play this game because I've gotten back and forth on camera several times. I'm always buying and selling gear. So you could probably say you've had this one. Probably, yes. But yeah, I love the C70. It's such a great video camera, and it's just super reliable. Everything you pointed at always looks good.
That's cool. That's amazing to hear. What has been like one of your favorite cameras that you've had, despite like the Canon EOS R, as of recently? I guess a better question is, what's been the most interesting camera that you've seen lately and why?
Uh, from cameras that I've experienced, I mean, there's cameras that I find are really interesting that I haven't tried yet. Like I would love to try the Ronin 4D, for example. I
Oh
haven't put my
yeah.
hands on that camera because it's just so different. You know what I mean? I love seeing new tech come out. I feel like in the last couple years since I've been into this stuff, like there hasn't been a lot of advancements. I
Yeah.
mean, it's been like because all the cameras are so good at this
Yeah.
point. You know what I mean? What's opened my eyes was shooting on red, just because it is just drastically different than any mirrorless camera. Just the way it operates, the
Mm.
way the codec is, the way that your whole mindset has to change. And so for me personally, that's what sort of thrown a wrench into it was shooting on red. And anyone hasn't tried that before, like you have to approach it very differently. So
Interesting.
to me, that's like currently what's holding my interest because all these other cameras, like they kind of all work the same, like.
Yeah. Do you feel like camera technology has plateaued in a way?
I don't think so. I think things are going to keep getting better. I still think there's a lot that can happen in terms of technology, in terms of processing speed. Overheating is still an issue.
Yeah.
Like, these camera companies are trying to get the price down on these smaller bodied 10-bit 4K video cameras, and they all overheat.
Yeah.
And as someone who doesn't do any photography, that just drives me crazy.
Yeah.
And it's hard when people say, "Hey, I want to buy this camera, that camera," and I'm like, "Yeah, it's gonna overheat on you, and like you're gonna be really frustrated."
Right.
So I think the technology will continue to get better. I would also like to see, higher resolutions with more oversampling, like stuff like that. I really do think that that's, where the next round of cameras are going to have to go. But again, it's a lot of processing power. Then you're draining a lot of power, and it's a struggle to get the cameras to keep them small and to keep the price down.
You kind of just answered a question that I was going to ask, which is, just where
Oh, okay.
no, that's totally fine. Like where I was just going to ask, like, where do you see camera technology going in the next 5 years? Within the next 5 years, what are you hoping to see? What are you thinking you'll see? Maybe we could dive into that a little deeper, and talk about what brands you'd really want to see, like, just do something really incredible. Whether that's I don't know, variable ND built into the FX next, whatever they call it.
Yeah, there's a huge wish list I'm sure for anyone who are probably watching this video. Yeah, I think some of the things I was talking about before with just getting part of me also, like, as someone who has the access to expensive cameras, I really would love to see these cameras become even cheaper and more accessible to more people, because I think that there is a huge, like we were talking about before, going from cell phone to camera. Like if you're going to invest $500 in a camera, I would say use your phone. If you're going to invest $4,000 into a camera system, yes,
Yeah.
make that jump. And then you have to spend all the time learning how to shoot with it, how to edit it, how to expose and grade it. So there's a huge learning curve there. So that's something that I have a lot of
Yeah.
people that I would like to see get into using a dedicated camera, because as you know, like when you go outside in the real world, you don't see a lot of people holding cameras anymore. And so I'm always interested when I see someone with a camera, like, what are they
Right.
using? What are they doing? Like, why have they made that effort to bring a camera with them?
Yeah.
When I go out, I just bring my phone to take pictures of my family and stuff. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to bring a camera out. So,
Yeah.
but on my personal wish list, yes, built-in ND filters in every camera, please. I would take that over
Okay.
IBIS, like hands down. Like if the FX3, if I could sub out internal ND for IBIS, I would do that in a second. So that's a huge one. I would like to see just more control over the image in these cameras. Like, one thing, a complaint about like the A7S3 and the FX3, for example, because we've been talking about them, is you can't control noise reduction. So in a lot of ways, you can't control the image as much as you'd like to. And like I said before, like I'd like to see some higher resolution stuff. I don't really care so much about high frame rates personally, but I think 6K is kind of the sweet spot right now, in my
Yeah.
opinion, for a lot of the work that I do. Between cameras like the Komodo, the R3, even like the FX30 has a 6K sensor. I find that like that is kind of, or like the A74's got a 7K sensor. The R6 Mark II has, all these cameras, they have a slightly higher resolution, and then you can downsample them. It really does help with noise and things like that, and really gives a little bit more detail. So I'd like to see more of that. Like I'd love to see an FX3 small camera with NDs and oversampling. That'd be cool.
That'd be like a dream for me too. Because it is interesting that you said that, the threshold is kind of high for people wanting to get into camera stuff because, for instance, Canon had just come out with that like little pocket vloggy camera. And, you know, when I first see something like that, I'm like, I would just continue
Yeah.
to encourage people to shoot with their phone. And really the next step up is spending, you know, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 to invest into like a real camera system. So I think it really would be beneficial for someone to have something like, I don't know, like maybe $1,500 that they could get into the camera market. I mean, it would be amazing if they could even get into it cheaper. Where do you feel like the conversation lies between like a lot of people when the ZVE1 came out, people were saying like, I'm getting rid of my A7S III for it.
Yeah. Oh man.
Is that the right
So
one?
I did review the ZV one. I did post a video like a couple weeks ago. And I had to get it much later because I'm not getting the cameras up front. So
Yeah.
that camera I had a really mixed opinion about, because as someone who's owned the A7S III or FX3 since they came out, it's a camera that I've leaned on heavily for content creation
Yeah.
and videography. And when I got the camera in my hand, I'm thinking, man, this is an FX3 in this tiny camera. Like, to me, that kind of blew my mind because I know how powerful those cameras are.
Yeah.
And then you go out and shoot with it and you're like, okay, it overheats. Like, if you look at it wrong, like it's,
Yeah.
and so, I mean, I had the thought, I was like, this would be a great gimbal camera, but if you put it in 4K 60 and go outside, that thing's not going to last very long. And so that's my struggle with that camera. But I think people need to realize that camera was not marketed towards someone like myself. That camera is for people that are going to leave it mostly in auto mode and just want to like really get a really good image out of their camera and not have to stress so much about it. I mean, it's ergonomically, it doesn't have a lot of buttons and dials. Like, it's not geared towards someone like myself.
Yeah. That's interesting.
I wouldn't trade an A7S III or an FX3 for it, like, personally.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. I've seen some people do that, and I'm like, and me not being able to mess with the camera, I don't know, but I've been shocked by people doing that. But understanding like their workflow, if they're needing something different, you know, again, like the right camera is made for the right shooting situation. But when it comes to you creating your YouTube videos, I'd love to be able to pick your brain a little bit about how you go about making your videos from the moment you have an idea, from conception to the moment you hit publish on YouTube. Could you walk us through like your process in doing so?
Sure. First of all, coming up with the idea. So
Yep.
that's sometimes can be easy, sometimes cannot be easy. Sometimes it's based on what's new at the time and what I can get my hands on. It may not be the thing I want to be working on, but it's like, okay, that is most important right now. I should try to get that video done as soon as possible. Once I figure that out, depending on the style of video, so if I'm doing like a review or a comparison type video, then I'll go out and shoot all the comparisons that I need to do and get them in my computer, edit them so I can make my analysis, because I can't even outline my video until I know like, oh, this one's better in low light. This one has more dynamic range. This one, all that stuff that I like to compare. Once I get all that done, then I'll sit down and write my outline. And I actually use the Apple Notes app on my computer because I can transfer that between any computer, my phone. Yep. You can also share it with someone else if you're collaborating. I love that thing. So I'll just outline it in there, and then if I'm doing like sort of a standard video, I'll record my talking head in the studio here, and I have a teleprompter where I put the notes in there. I don't script anything. I never have. I don't like doing that. I don't like writing. Like that's not my, and also I can kind of talk. So for me, if I have a bunch of my notes like bulleted, I can just go through and just kind of go through them. So from there, I'll just bring everything to the computer and edit it up, and then simple thumbnail like we talked about before, and try to move on to the next one. So I don't think it's super complicated, but I think the biggest thing is the outlining process. And I think that a lot of people will, if they don't spend time outlining, if it's like, or scripting or whatever you're comfortable with, you're going to spend way more time editing, because you're going to have to then piece it all back together.
Yeah.
But if you have it all sorted out ahead of time, you can just rip right through it. And so that's something that I really focused on as being a content creator for 4 or 5 years now, is speed and efficiency is really, really important. I mean, you don't want to cut corners. You want to make sure that your quality is where you want it to be. But if you can get a video done faster, so for me, like having all of my equipment in the studio, having my lights set up, having my microphones ready to go. And I can just come in and like, okay, it's time to record, just turn everything on. I'm not setting up C-stands and lights and like
Yeah.
all that stuff will distract me from getting the job done. So I think for me, having all that investment in time and money and gear has really helped to just get the process done faster.
Yeah. That's super
So
cool.
that's kind of my workflow. I don't know how different that is than most people, but it's been helpful to outline things as much as possible.
No, I think it's really smart to be able to do like your research before you can make a video. I think like sometimes, like for me, I can kind of get jumpy and want to make the video right away. And then I'm like backtracking and realizing like, oh, I probably actually should have done this. And then it takes me so much longer if I had just like started with gathering all my material beforehand, gathering the data and research that I need to then be able to compile that together. Because it's, for me, I think in a creator space, it's so easy for us as creators to want to like jump the gun and start making something because we're like, it's like what's sparking off right away. Or you're wanting to, we talked a little bit earlier, you and me, about like tweaking camera gear because you're like, you want to try something different. You have like a good setup and then you're like, well, no, I kind of want to change it now. And then you end up just like, it's a debacle after that point. You said you go through a lot of different camera setups and you just change your setup pretty regularly. Walk us through that a little bit. Like, what are you changing when you're like sitting there and you're like, I want to try this or change this?
It's mainly like a different camera or lens, or you just kind of like get bored of something. Like, how would this look? How would, and then let's swap out this camera. Let's do a different angle here. I've kind of got it down to, I'll give you a couple more tips to also in relation to this, but also what we were talking about before, is that I don't do a lot of B-roll in my videos. And so what I do is I film with multiple angles and then use multicam. And so when you watch my video, I'm literally doing all that stuff while I'm talking to the camera. And so for me, that's, again, a speed and efficiency workflow. So I generally have 3 or 4 cameras running at a time, an A cam, a B cam, and then now I have permanently mounted at a low angle and an overhead. And so when I go to do my videos, I just do the whole thing. And if I'm going to show something, I just show it and I talk about it. And then I use multicam and I can rip through the edit like really quickly. So I don't bother shooting B-roll. And I know that's part of tech YouTube and camera YouTube is all the fancy
angles.
But I've never really personally thought it made the video more valuable to the person watching. It is cool as a creator to get that experience with it. But for me, like I'm about, let's get this video done. Let's get information out to people. So that's been a huge part of it. But in terms of the setup, that's kind of what I've landed on with tweaking things. But of course it's like, oh, maybe I need to shoot with this lens today. Maybe I need to try this camera, this microphone. Like, should I use an overhead? Should I use a dynamic microphone or whatever? So, and that's the nature, like, let's just get this done. You know what I mean?
I love that your videos are just really straight to the point.
Thank
They're
you.
just like right away. Like I know I'm going to get my information right out the door. And it's just very direct. And I love that. And it makes so much more sense now that you're also saying you're filming, you messing with the camera while you're doing the talking head. And I could see that making it actually like greatly beneficial when in the edit, because you're not having to go film those angles and whatnot. That's super interesting. I need to take notes on that because maybe I need to start doing that too. So I want to talk, we've mentioned your thumbnails. You wanted like consistency between all of your thumbnails. Do you ever feel like there's this big battle of thumbnails on YouTube and having the right thumbnail is what gets people to click on the videos? How did you find a point where you're like, I want to stay consistent and true to me? And do you ever feel this urge or need to like try to have a big flashy thumbnail?
I don't anymore. I really do play the long game on YouTube. And for me, like I could have more channel growth if I played that game, that I wouldn't say clickbait game, but interest, like I don't think clickbait works anymore. I think once, if you have something, people don't know what clickbait is. First of all, let's talk about that because we
can talk about that. Yeah.
Because I get comments like, this is so clickbait. I'm like, no. Clickbait is when you
No, let's talk about that.
Yeah. So clickbait literally is like, if you have something in your title and thumbnail that does not represent what's in the video, that's clickbait.
Yeah.
But if what I show in the title and thumbnail is actually what the video is about, then it's not clickbait. So I get comments like, this is so clickbait. Anyways, But there are ways of getting people to click more. And it's been really interesting, as you just mentioned, like the trends in YouTube where, maybe a year ago, you started seeing arrows pop up everywhere. Like there's an arrow on everyone's
Right.
thumbnail right now. And then before that, it was like the YouTube shocked face or whatever. And now it's a combination of those things with lots of colors. And to me, it's the long game. And if I go down that route, then I'm spending time and energy on that when I don't want to be spending time and energy on that. And to me, what I give up is faster growth on YouTube. I will get less views. I will get less growth for that. But I'm okay with that because I don't think that that's what I want to do. So I've just become at peace with that. Most of my thumbnails, I mean, it's interesting. I had this conversation with some friends a while ago who are very interested in that sort of world. And I'm not like, I never want to say that my approach is better than someone else's. It's just a different approach.
Totally.
And I went back and looked at my farming channel, and all of my most viewed videos, there's no words. It's just a photo. The thumbnail is just a photo.
Yeah.
There's one that I drew like a square on something, but otherwise it was just a photo. And so to me, I'm like, I don't think it matters for long term. And I think most people wind up, you see the creators in our space who have been doing it for a while and are successful. Generally, people are going to watch their videos regardless of, they just need to recognize that it's a Josh video or someone else, you know what I mean? And then they're going to want to hear my opinion about it. That's what I hope happens, at least.
Yeah. Do you think it's more rewarding then for somebody to, and I guess you could kind of define this a few different ways, but is it more valuable to you to have a consistent thumbnail look that is identifiable to who you are and your brand, or have what looks to be like really scattered all over the place, like different types of thumbnails? I think it also too, it depends on what you're wanting to do with your YouTube channel and where you're wanting to go with it. Right.
Yeah. It's kind of what I said before. Your thumbnails and your titles is part of your personal branding of your channel. So it's all part of the package of selling your product, which is you and your channel and your videos. So also when I see everyone going one direction, I tend to have the tendency to go the other direction in life. Like I see like all the arrows and the faces and all the stuff we're talking about, those like clicky and I just post like a photo. Like what stands out when you look in your feed, like what kind of stands out there?
Yeah.
Do you see what I'm saying? So sometimes you can be on the other side of it too. I still probably get less clicks than the clicky ones, but whatever.
What are some of the strategies that you have besides like doing thumbnails? What has been some of your strategies and thoughts, going forward in the next 5 years for your YouTube channel? What are you hoping for to play that long game?
Evergreen content is king. And so I think a lot of content, so as being someone who puts content on YouTube, that part of the psychology of being a YouTuber is YouTube Studio and how it forces you to think certain ways because you can't avoid the analytics. And Josh, I don't know who your audience is here, so I'm guessing that we're content creators watching this, right? I'm speaking to
content creators, people who are camera people.
Okay.
Yeah, like kind of the whole a wide range of people.
So there's that like adrenaline rush, that dopamine hit that when you like put out a video and it does well and you're excited about it, and so as creators and as humans, we're like chasing that. Like we want to have a high performing video.
Yeah.
But what's even sexier than that is when you see your average views per 48 hours increase month over month, and you see your affiliate sales increase month over month. That's what I get excited about. And that's really hard to turn off the other part of it where you're like, oh, I posted 8 out of 10. I posted a 10 out of 10. And so what I'm seeing now is I'm building up that library of evergreen content that's searchable. I used to call it searchable content before that I heard the term evergreen content, but stuff that you can constantly search for, like how to fix your dishwasher, how to grade S-Log3 footage, how to, whatever it is, because that's the stuff that continually gets views over time. And that's what I could take a few weeks off and my channel doesn't really dip very much because there's so much content that's just getting viewed all the time. So that's part of my long-term strategy is evergreen content. And really, I think the biggest tip or strategy that I could give is just focus on value. And when I focus on value more than anything, I think that's what I'd like to get across in my videos. Like you come here for the information, you're going to get it. And I always try to sneak in like something else if I possibly can, some other teaching moment about camera settings or how to expose something, or there's always like a little nugget in there that even if you haven't like you're there for something, there'll be something else I'll talk about in there. I always try to throw something in there.
Yeah.
And so when you have as much value as possible, I don't stress about titles and thumbnails. I don't worry about that stuff. Now, value could be several things. It could be informational. It could be a teaching thing. It could be entertainment. It could be a combination of them. Like you could be an entertainment channel, and that's valuable to people.
Yeah.
But I just don't want to create like shallow, hollow content. Like I want it to have a lot of meaning to it. And so that's what I focus on. And I don't worry about that other stuff because I think long-term it kind of works out. That's kind of my strategy with it.
I absolutely love that because I feel the need to pursue the same kind of thing of having work that stands the test of time and can be helpful to the audience. You know, that they actually can watch the video and there was a form of entertainment with it, but also is very educational. And also I'm able to walk away from this video and have learned something. I think that's absolutely huge. I think you've done that really well because you just cut straight to the point and I love it. Like just cutting straight to the point. Like you said, no BS. And that evergreen content is so beneficial for people in the long run, you know?
Thanks. Yeah, that straight to the point thing came from the farming channel because when I started that channel, I was watching all the other small scale farmers and homesteaders. If you don't know what a homesteader is, it's someone that like grows a lot of their own food and that sort of thing. It's kind of like advanced gardening, I would say, like next level gardening. And so I was watching a lot of those channels and it was a lot of like vlog style content. And the title would be like how to grow the best tomato or whatever. But you'd have to watch like 6 minutes of of like, I'm going to go get my eggs from my chickens and then I'm going to go water the thing. And I was just like, I just want to give, and I started just getting right to the point. And so people were like, I really like that. So that's kind of just carryover from that. I'm just like, let's get to the point. I don't have an really intro anymore. Like, I don't know. It's just like, let's just get to, I mean, we're competing with short form content. Like I'm not a short form content creator. I don't think I ever will be. And so you got to get people right away and like give them the information that they want. So that's what I want. Like when you go to click on a video and you like how to do something, you don't want to watch like 10. Give me the information, you know?
You're like scrubbing through the timeline, trying to find the right spot at where because you get the hint that like, oh, they're going to talk for 5 minutes and you're trying to figure out like, where is it at that they actually tell me how to change the settings on my camera, you know?
And that's the same thing with like putting the chapter markers in the bottom of the, And I originally was like, oh, this is silly. Like, I don't want to spend the time doing this. I want people to watch the whole video, but really, it provides more value to the viewer if you can help them find what they need easier.
Yeah, I agree. As a viewer, it's super helpful for me. And as a creator, I want that to be beneficial for them as well. Like I want them to be able to, especially if there's a bunch of settings that you're talking about on a camera and there's just one specific thing that they're needing, they're able to scroll right over to that chapter, get it, and then, you know, they can hop on out. You know, you'd hope that they want to watch it, you know, the rest of the video, but it is beneficial for them. I think that's huge. The last question that I have for you is, as a creator, you've been in the creator space on YouTube, making videos for farming, now cameras, but as a creator, what has been something that you have learned over the years that you think would be valuable to share with somebody who's starting out? That can be in the YouTube space, but that can also just be as someone who's wanting to start real estate videos. Just as a creator, as a whole, what's something valuable that you would like to share with people?
I think we've hit on a lot of them, but I'll try to like condense it down. I think the first thing is pick something that you're super passionate about. My friend Raphael Ludwig says, like, pick something that you can't shut up about. Like you're always talking about to your wife, your family, like whatever, like that's what you should be making a video about. And then, like I said before, like focus on value. And I think if you do that, people will watch your video and they go, man, I got a lot out of this. I want to hit subscribe, or I want to use the affiliate links down below, and that sort of thing. And I've noticed that, my channel is not growing probably as quickly as some of the other channels, but that's okay because it's about the long game for me. And I am not full-time content creator. Like I'm doing other work as well.
Right.
And so that kind of takes the pressure off of it a little bit. So I guess those are my two big things. Don't get too caught up in all the gear and all the fancy edits and all that stuff. Like, focus on the content, focus on providing value, and just be like pumped. Like if you're making content and you're not excited about it, like it comes through so easily. People are like, I'm not watching this guy. He doesn't care.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I think that's huge.
Absolutely. I mean, just kind
I
of
think that's beneficial.
just my approach. And if you're not doing something you're excited
Yeah.
about, you're not going to make good videos. You know what I mean?
Josh, thanks for being on the podcast, man. I appreciate it. I don't want to take up much of your time left. We're kind of coming to the end of this, and so I'm very thankful that you're here. Thank you for your insight, your wisdom, kind of you breaking down like how you make your approach on videos. It's been honestly really great chatting with you.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity, and maybe we'll have to do it again sometime, Josh.
Check it out.